Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Silver Screen Shenanigans podcast. My name is Devin, and today we are covering another one of another fantastic movie, uh, called Fury from 2014, and it is one of my favorites for a myriad of reasons. From the cast, the story, the setting, the writing, etc., etc. Another fantastic movie. It with a star-studded cast. Alicia von Rittberg plays Emma. Logan Lerman plays Norman Ellison, who I will always see as Percy Jackson. Shia LaBeouf, who plays Boyd Bible Swan. John Bernthal, who plays Grady Davis. Brad Pitt, who plays War Daddy. Michael Pena, who plays Trini Gordo Garcia. So those are some of the main people that we follow throughout the movie, with a couple other sergeants, captains, and a couple of other smaller roles that people have, and everybody does a fantastic job. Talking about the setting of this movie, it is pretty grim, pretty dark, but that did not stop people from paying a buttload of money to see it. This movie grossed very well, and it is not surprising why. United States, we like our war movies, especially World War II. No matter who is directing, it seems like when there's a solid cast and a solid story set in this time, it's kind of a recipe for success. So with that all out of the way, let's begin talking about Fury. So, what year is this set in? Well, it's towards the end of World War II, and I've covered a couple movies concerning World War II, that were earlier. This is counting down to the last days, so the fighting is getting grittier, more unforgiving, but there's a sentiment that everyone just wants this thing to be over. So as the Allies make their final push into Nazi Germany in April of 1945, a battle-hardened U.S. Army staff, sergeant of the 60-something Armored Division, and his name, Don War Daddy Collier, played by Brad Pitt, who is just a masterclass in this movie. He is going at 100%. Definitely in third gear throughout this entire movie. He is a pretty big rock in this movie. He commands a M4A 3E8. That's what it was. Sherman tank. I had to look that up. So the Sherman tanks were the primary tank of the United States during World War II, and it was extremely important because we could just, I guess, like the quantity, I suppose, that we could produce. I guess in simple terms, it completely outmatched the Axis forces with the quantity we could produce. Not to say that they were better, because unfortunately they definitely were not, I guess, as armored. The guns weren't as big. The shells weren't as big as, for example, Panzers or Tigers that the Germans had, but what we could, what we did have was mobility and speed. It was fairly fast for a tank. And what we could do with that speed and numbers is surround and expose the enemy. It with him is he's got a 5-man crew. They're all sort of veterans. Gunner Boyd Bible Swan, played by Shia LaBeouf. He fires the big gun, the big shell. The loader, played by Grady Travis. I don't know if I can say his war name. I'll let you figure that one out. He is, the loader of the big gun. The driver, Trini Gordo Garcia. He is, like I said, the driver, but he also mans a machine gun as well, in the front of the tank. The tank's original assistant driver and the bow gunner, or I've heard it called ball gunner before too, has been killed in battle. And that's kind of where our movie opens up, is essentially that it's this battlefield with total destruction, a bunch of blown up tanks in this area, mainly Shermans. And it's just this crew that we're left with. And a Nazi commander comes riding by on a horse, and Brad Pitt, or War Daddy, jumps out, stabs, and gets rid of him. They finally get the tank working, and they get back to base. They have to, bury their fallen soldier, which it mentions, too, that this crew has been together since Northern Africa. So, the beginning of the Allies entering the war. So these guys are very close-knit, and to lose one of their own it's devastating. They get to this base, and a couple things happen. An SS soldier is coming through this base, a POW, and Brad Pitt loses it, understandably, because they say that SS, these guys are the ones that started the war. We're gonna finish it, and he's about ready to kill this guy, but they separate the two. They also find out that they have a new assistant driver and gunner, Norman, who will eventually get his war name, but not quite yet. They meet him, and Brad Pitt, or War Daddy, is less. I guess I'll just call him Don. Don is less than enthused, to say the least, because Norman is definitely not battle hardened at all, very new, and he, with the scuffle with the SS officer, Don tells Norman, "These are the ones you kill, and kill every one of these you see." So the surviving crew, who have all been together for a long time, belittle the new recruit upon meeting him, just because of his lack of experience and the reluctancy to kill Germans, which, to a lot of battle-hardened soldiers, this is the job. This is what we're here to do. They're here to kill us. We're here to kill them. And Norman is just maybe naive a little bit. I don't know if naive's the right word. Or he's just new to it all. I'm not sure what it is. But that it is what it is. And he is exposed to the horrors of war very quickly. The decision well, I guess this decision of hesitancy on the part of Norman um, will later be a huge factor. So, uh, they meet some captains, I believe, and they get this tank crew and a few other tank crews. They get the orders to meet these Germans and to take them out at the certain location. So they're leaving the camp, and as they're driving along this forested area, Norman sees these kids, these like 16, 17, 18-year-olds in German uniforms, and he hesitates because of their age. But then these kids fire a rocket that, like, I'm not even sure how it works, but I'm not sure what it's called, but essentially what it does is it's incredibly hot when it fires. So this heating, this super hot ball hits the tank, and it like supposedly melts through the armor, then will explode inside of the tank and cause a fiery mess because it hits the ammunition. And that's essentially what happens. I don't think it's the first one, but one of the tank crews that happens to. And after they get to camp, I guess they clear this like open field full of Germans. They shooting tanks. Norman is still reluctant to fire his gun. But they don't lose any more tanks, and I don't believe they lose any men clearing out this field and taking out a few of these anti-tank guns for Germans. To, I suppose, educate Norman, Don pulls one of the the German POWs, and kind of forces Norman, Don takes out a pistol that he has, and he puts it in Norman's hand and sort of forces him to kill this German. Because I believe Don says something like, "You are no good to me unless you can kill Germans," or kill Krauts, I believe is what he says. Which is something that I guess soldiers called Allied soldiers called Axis soldiers. War Daddy, forces the gun into his hand and executes the prisoner. But then Norman goes and has some coffee, and they talk with. He sort of talks with the rest of the crew. They kind of say how Norman's a little crazy, but he made a promise to him. He made a promise that he was going to get all of his men home, and it's just faced with this decision. I believe, like after this little scuffle they have, he turns to Don turns to Norman. He says, "I had the best gunner in the Allied forces," or something like that, and now I have you. So it's just this frustration. So they have that little talk, and then they go to this town, and they have another scuffle where they encounter heavy machine guns, anti-tank guns. A lot of men are killed. Like one guy has his leg just completely shot off by these machine guns. But the tanks of the Allies here, they cleared this town out pretty effectively. And throughout this journey that they've been traveling to clear out this town, they've noticed that these kids have been hung. And they have signs in German that say like deserters or, something awful like that, a poor excuse to kill a kid. But they get to this town and they see some, I guess, soldiers and civilians who have surrendered, and they're taking them out. And I think they see, I believe Don sees one of these German soldiers, and he asks one of the civilians who speaks German and English if he's the guys who've been hanging the kids. And I believe he gets the confirmation. Yeah. He gets the confirmation from this German civilian, and then it was without hesitation. Don's like, he tells one of his buddies, "Hey, shoot that guy." It's like, yeah, he's hanging kids. We're gonna shoot him. So that guy's killed, and so they clear out more of the town. They encounter another anti-tank gun, which is basically just what it sounds like. It's just a big gun with fires big shells to take out tanks. But our boys take it out first, and these German soldiers like kind of run out of the building they were in, like on fire. And Norman gets his first couple kills in the movie and takes out some German soldiers. So they have sort of a bonding moment when Norman and Dawn get into this town, and they're searching a house, and Dawn and Norman discover a German woman. I believe her name is Irma, and her cousin Emma. So something kind of interesting here happens. I guess Norman and Emma have this sweet little moment behind closed doors, and you can figure it out what happens. So after they come out of the bedroom, the four sit down and have a breakfast together, and it's really a sweet scene of kind of shows humanity. But maybe the point of this scene is showing the kindness of humanity is interrupted pretty rudely by the rest of our crew here, and they barge in, teasing the woman, eating the food, licking the food, just being kind of jerks, essentially. Pisses off Don a pretty great deal, and Norman. So shortly afterwards, a German bombardment hits the town, and it kills Emma and some of the American forces. So we got to go. The rest of the crew's like, we got to figure out where that is. We got to go take it out. This, coupled with observing the retreating German soldiers burning their own towns and cruelly, yeah, they show their own Germans who do not fight for the Wehrmacht, hardens Norman. He confesses to War Daddy that he has begun to enjoy killing Germans. So the platoon, I can't speak today, platoon of 4 tanks led by Fury, which is, title of the movie and, title of our boy's tank, receives orders to hold a vital crossroads, protecting a clear path for supply trains for the Axis. On the way to the crossroads, they are unfortunately ambushed by a heavily armed German Tiger 1. And if I could show you a picture, I would, but I highly encourage you to look up one of these German Tigers. Well, really just compared to our Shermans, these things were absolutely massive, very intimidating, and heavily armored. Our rounds could not pierce their rounds one by one, so we had to essentially, from what I understand, we had to essentially have these 4v1s, where 3 of the tanks would kind of distract the Tiger, essentially, and while one of our tanks could get behind it and hit its weaker armor from the backside and blow up its ammunition, destroying the tank. This German one quickly destroys one of the tanks, and the remaining 3 reluctantly attack, knowing that they are outgunned. The Shermans advance and attempt to outflank. 2 of the other Shermans are destroyed before they can finally destroy this dang thing. Yeah, so Fury gets behind the Tiger and blows it up. So these men proceeded the crossroads. They once had 5 or 6 tanks. Now it's just them. And they have a duty to hold this crossroads from this incoming large German force. As they reach the crossroads, they take a turn, and the tank is immobilized, which was a problem for tanks, obviously. These mines would be everywhere. And the track is pieces of the track are shattered, and the rest of it just kind of falls to the ground, and it's immobilized. So if anything, it can't get any worse. If anything, it can't get any worse. Now our boys can't even drive the tank. They soon realize that there's some like houses next to them. So I believe Norman and what's his name? Grady, played by John Bernthal. They go to this house and they're looking through it, make sure it's unoccupied. And it's something as like someone who watches movies, you kind of get used to it. And it hurts every time when like some side characters um start to get like a little chummy, start to have some nice scenes with our main characters. It's like, oh no, what's about to happen? It happens in TV shows and movies all the time. But Grady tells Norman that he's a good man, that he like could wishes he could still be sort of innocent like him. So they report back that this is um empty house, and they soon realize that the reinforced company of 300 SS men, and they have infantry, trucks, machine guns. Norman heads up. He finds this out because he had scouted up the hill a little bit farther, and he runs back and informs the crew. War Daddy, or Don, he takes the initial step. He's going to stay here. He's going to defend the position, because what the hell else is he going to do? So the rest of the crew, not wanting to abandon their leader and their friend, they decide to stay and propose an ambush, and they sort of set that up as the Germans come in. Night falls. Outnumbered and outgunned. The crew of Fury plan to fight to the last man. They inflict a heavy loss on the Germans using both the tank machine guns and the crew's own weapons, such as rifles and pistols. Don using his captured German 44 assault rifle, in addition to his M19 revolver. Yeah, I meant to say revolver, not pistol. As they continue to fight, they run low on ammo. They're chucking grenades outside. They eventually have to like open the top lid to go outside. And I think Bible, Shia LaBeouf's character, he has to like open the lid of the tank to go out and get a gun because he's out of ammunition. They can still fire with the shells that they have with the big gun. That takes out some of the German trucks. They're inflicting some heavy losses, but the numbers eventually get to them. They can't cover all flanks of the tank. One of those guns that was used earlier in the movie that can basically shoot inside the tank. They fire that from like one of the sides of the tank. It goes through and unfortunately pierces right through Grady's chest and kills him instantly. Gordo is, I believe they throw a tank, or they throw a, I can't remember if it's Gordo or Bible that dies next, but I remember Bible is running up to give guns to the rest of the crew. There's a sniper, and I believe the sniper or something like that shoots Bible in the head. Gordo is killed when a grenade is thrown in one of the holes of the tank, and Gordo shoves um oh shoot, what's his name? Norman. He shoves Norman to the side, far as far away as he can, and then jumps on the grenade and sacrifices himself. Um, and then the sniper once again gravely wounds War Daddy, and he falls into the lid of the tank. And it's Dawn, who's been heavily injured, and Norman, who are left. And they retreat. They retreat into the tank and close the lid again, where they have some last words with each other. And I believe, sort of around this moment, Norman gets his war name. They call him Machine. They talk about how, like, they respect each other, and they have a moment of, like, sort of connection where they both acknowledge that they are scared. Dawn tells Norman that there's an escape hatch in the bottom of the tank, and he tells him to get out, go live his life. So Norman, in the nick of time, opens up this hatch and closes it again once he's out, and sort of digs himself into the dirt underneath the tank, just as two SS soldiers, well, the first couple are shot with War Daddy's revolver, but eventually he runs out of ammo. And just as Norman escapes, the SS officers drop 2 grenades into the tank, and Dawn is presumably killed. So while Norman makes himself like a little makeshift crater underneath the tank to avoid the explosion, a young German SS trooper discovers Norman beneath the tank, but curiously enough does not report any of his fellow soldiers, which I found interesting. It's kind of like another moment of humanity popping up in there. Like this kid, this young German soldier had a choice to show kindness, and he did. And I imagine there was a lot of that, where young boys were forced into the German army against their will. So the Norman continues to hide and eventually falls asleep until the next day. The next morning, the U.S. Army medics discover Norman, and he like busts out of this tank like ready to fight like whoever it is, because he assumes it is Germans. He's told that his actions were heroic. Although the look on his face, from what I remember, he doesn't feel like a hero. He just feels like a guy who's just lost his brothers. So as Norman is being transported back to safety, he looks back to see the carnage of the hundreds and hundreds of dead German SS troops surrounded by fury. And that's essentially where the movie ends. And my goodness, what a movie. Like I said, the acting, the setting being a World War II, the acting, Brad Pitt is at the top of his game, as so is the rest of this crew that we focus on through most of the movie. It is, I commend it because it's very blunt, it's very unforgiving with the horrors of war. But I also thought it was interesting to show how they show them like little specks of love, kindness, humanity, whatever you want to call it. That sort of kept some of the men going, and just the brotherhood behind this crew and how they were with each other to the very end. Dang it. It's definitely a tough watch. I mean, for that reason that you see these guys, um, well, most of this crew all have to die, but so goes war. Like sometimes that's what it was. Uh, and you could easily, criticize the men in the movie for like the tank breaks down. Well, we just gotta retreat. We gotta run away. That wasn't their style. That they were gonna finish out this thing one way or another, knowing the consequences. It's a true shine of it's a like a tragic bravery, I suppose. Um, and I mean it. Once again, I don't know what else I can say besides it's a fantastic movie and I highly recommend. Um, it. I mean, yeah. What else can I say besides it's a 8, 9 out of 10? Probably 8 out of 10 for sure. Um, and that was the next episode of the Silver Screen Shenanigans podcast, where I covered Fury. I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all next time.